Now that we have already calculated the number of odd days for different number of centuries, like number of odd days in 100 years, 200 years, 300 years and 400 years, let us now take a simple example through which we'll understand how to calculate or how to find out the day of the week for a given date. And as I've mentioned earlier, it depends on the number of odd days. So let's see how our knowledge of number of odd days helps us in finding out the day of the week. The given question here is, which day of the week was 15th August 1947? So 15th August 1947, a historic day for us, that is the Indian Independence Day. And I'm sure some of you would already know which day of the week it was without having to do any calculation there. But let us see how can we calculate the day of the week for 15th August 1947. For those who all remember, it was a Friday. So let's see if we get the same day through our calculation of number of odd days. Now what we are going to do here is find out the number of odd days from the 0th day up to 15th August 1947. As you know, 0th day was a Sunday, as we have discussed earlier, right? So from that day up to 15th August 1947, we need to calculate the number of odd days, and that will help us in finding out the day of the week for this date. Now to make it simple, what we are going to do here is split this date in terms of different parts. For example, 1947, look at the year 1947. It can be taken as 1600 years plus 300 years. Now we'll understand why are we taking it as 1600 plus 300 going forward, but as of now 1600 years plus 300 years is 1900 years. Now there are 47 more years and 15th August of the 1947th year. So we'll take another 46 years. So far we have taken 1600 plus 300 plus 46, that means 1946 years, right? And now we are in the 1947th year. In this 1947th year, we have to reach 15th August. Now before August, we have 7 months, that is January to July. So we'll consider those 7 months, January to July. And in the month of August, after finishing July, we have August. Now in the month of August, we need to take 15 days, right? 15 day of the August, so plus 15. So if you observe, overall we have got 15th August 1947 as 1600 plus 300 plus 46, that is 1946 years. Then in the 1947th year, we are considering the months from January to July, and then the next month is August, where we need to take up the 15th day. So 15 will give you the final date here. So by adding all these, we get this date, 15th August 1947. Now we will calculate the number of odd days for each of these terms and add all of them together to get the total number of odd days. Now once we proceed in finding out the number of odd days for each term, you would understand the importance of taking 1600 and then 300 and then 46 and so on. So let's start calculating the number of odd days. We have understood that in 100 years there are 5 odd days. In a period of 200 years, there are 3 odd days. In a period of 300 years, there is only 1 odd day. And in 400 years, there are 0 odd days. That means every 400 years, the number of odd days would be 0, right? Now that we have taken 1600 years, this can be taken as 4 times 400 years. And in 400 years, if there are 0 odd days, in 4 times 400 years also there would be 0 odd days. Basically the cycle repeats itself, right? 0th year to 400 years, 0 odd days. Then 401st year to 800 years, 0 odd days. Likewise 801st year to 1200th year, 0 odd days. So we know that in 1600 years there would be 0 odd days. So let's take it as 0, right? The calculation here is for the number of odd days. Plus, then comes the next part here, 300 years. What will be the number of odd days in 300 years? Basically these 300 years represent 1601st year up to the 1900 year, right? Already we have taken 1600 years. Then 1601 up to 1900 will give us 300 years. Now we very well know that in 300 years there is only 1 odd day, which we have calculated earlier, right? So in 300 years we will have only 1 odd day, so that comes here, 1 odd day for the second term, that is 300 years. Now comes the next term here, which is 46 years. Now when it comes to these 46 years, the number of odd days would depend on the number of ordinary years and leap years. We have understood that in every ordinary year there is only 1 odd day, whereas in a leap year there are 2 odd days. So what we need to do here is find out what will be the number of leap years and ordinary years in these 46 years. And if you observe, these 46 years represents 1901 to 1946, right? Already we have finished 1600, then 1601 to 1900. Now this comes the 1901 to 1946 year, right? Now we very well understand that leap year occurs every 4 years. And 1904 was a leap year, since it is exactly divisible by 4, right? 1900 was not a leap year, because for century years it has to be divisible by 400, which we have already understood. 1904 is a regular year. If it is divisible by 400, then it becomes a leap year. Now since 1904, the last two digits 04 are exactly divisible by 4, it is a leap year. So 1904 was a leap year, then 1908, 1912, 1916, 1920 and so on. 1924, 28, 1932, 1936, 1940, 1944. So all we need to do here is understand how many multiples of 4 do we have in these 46 years. How many exact multiples of 4 do we have in these 46 years? Now 4 into 11 is 44. 4 into 12 is 48. Now we cannot take into 12 because 48 is more than 46. Right? So less than or equal to 46, how many multiples are there? 44. 4 into 11 is 44. So we have 11 multiples, right? We can say that 4 occurs 11 times in 46 years. That means there will be 11 leap years, right? 1904, 1908 up to 1944, 11 leap years. So out of 46 years, 11 are leap years, and the remaining 35 years, 46 minus 11 is 35. These are ordinary years. So 11 leap years and 35 ordinary years. Now what will be the number of odd days? We know that each ordinary year will have one odd day. So 35 into 1 plus the number of leap years are 11, and each leap year will have 2 odd days. So 11 leap years into 2 will give you the number of odd days. So what is the number of odd days in 46 years? 35 into 1, which is 35, plus 11 into 2, 22. Right? So that will give us the number of leap years for 46 years. Now comes this part, January to July. How do we calculate this? In the month of January, now this month here is for the 1947th year, right? Now here we are in the year 1947. Already we have finished up to 1946. So in January 1947, there were 31 days, right? So we need to take 31 days. Right, we are trying to calculate the total number of days, which will give us the number of odd days, 31 days. Next month is February. February 1947. Was it a leap year? No. 1947 was an ordinary year. And a February month of any ordinary year will have only 0 days, 0 odd days. We'll have only 28 days, which means 0 odd days. So 0. Then comes the next month, March, which will again have 31 days. Then comes April, 30 days. Then comes the month May. May again will have 31 days. Right? After May we have June, which has 30 days, and then we have July, 31 days. And after July we have August, and in August we are considering 15 days. So plus 15. Now this total from 0 up to 15 will give us the total number of odd days from first day, that is 0th day, up to 15th August 1947. So let's do this calculation and find out the total number of odd days. Before that, let us understand how can we make this calculation simpler, right? This is already very easy to understand. 35 ordinary years, so 35 into 1 odd days, and 11 leap years, which will give us 11 into 2 odd days. So 35 into 1 is 35, plus 11 into 2 is 22. 35 plus 22 is 57. So the number of odd days in 46 years is 57. But what can be done to make this calculation a little easier? The point here is, if there are 46 years, whether it is a leap year or an ordinary year, it will have at least 1 odd day. An ordinary year has 1 odd day, a leap year has 2 odd days. So 46 years will definitely have 46 odd days plus some additional number of odd days, and this additional number of odd days will depend on the number of leap years. So if you look at it, 46 years, right, we can say the number of odd days will be equal to 46 plus the number of leap years. How many leap years? 11 leap years, which you have already understood. Now in these 11 leap years, we have already considered 1 odd day in 46. Now each leap year will have 1 additional odd day. right? Ordinary year 1 odd day, leap year 2 odd days. So for all these 46 years we have taken 46, which means for every year 1 odd day has been considered. Now there are 11 leap years. In these 11 leap years there will be one additional odd day, right? So we'll say plus 11. 46 plus 11 is equal to 57. So as you can see, either we can understand the number of ordinary years into 1 plus number of leap years into 2, which gives us 57, or the simple way to do the calculation is take the number of years 46 plus the number of leap years. Each leap year will have one additional odd day, right? So plus 11 will give us the number of odd days in those number of additional odd days in those 11 leap years. So 46 plus 11, 57. So that's one part which you need to remember while calculating number of odd days for these number of years, right? So that's one point which is very easy to understand and clear. Now comes the calculation of the odd days in each of these months. Instead of taking 31 in the sum, why don't we take only 3? Because 31 odd days is equivalent to 3 odd days. 31 odd days is 4 weeks, 28 days plus 3 days. So the point here is, instead of considering 31 days in January, let us say there are only 3 odd days in January. Then 0 remains 0, right? Understand, I'll keep a star here. This star mark indicates that you have to be careful when it comes to this month. We are taking 0 because this is February 1947, which was an ordinary year, so 0 odd days. But if it is a leap year, you have to take 1 in this case, right? So be careful for the month of February, right? If it is a leap year, take 1. If it is an ordinary year, take 0, right? So that 0 anyway remains 0. Then next comes 31 days in March. 31 days again can be taken as 3 odd days. So here we have 3. Then comes the month of April. April has got 30 days. 30 days again can be split as 4 weeks plus 2 days. So 2 odd days, 30 can be taken as 2 odd days. Likewise, the month of May has 31 days, which is equivalent to 3 odd days. Then comes June, 30 days, which is again equivalent to 2 odd days. Then comes the month July, which has total 31 days, which can be split as 4 weeks and 3 days. So 3 odd days. And 15 we have taken because it is the 15th day of the month of August. So 15. In fact, even 15 can be taken in a much easier way. We don't have to add 15. To make the calculation simple, I can say 15 is equal to 1 odd day. Why? 15 odd days is equal to 2 weeks plus 1 day. We very well know that odd days is nothing but in a given period the number of days more than complete weeks. So 2 complete weeks and 1 more day. So it can be taken as plus 1. So this way, instead of considering the total number of days of the month, we can only consider the additional number of days after complete weeks. So our calculation becomes easier. Likewise for 57 also, we don't have to add 57 in the sum. What can we do? 57 can be split as 8 weeks plus 1 day. 57 is equal to 56 plus 1. 56 days is equal to 8 weeks. 7 into 8 is 56. 8 weeks plus 1 day. So we don't have to add 57. I can say this is equal to 1 odd day. Alright. So we have learned 2 points here. One is how to make the number of odd days for 46 years simple. Right, instead of taking 35 into 1 plus 11 into 2, we can directly take 46 plus number of odd days. And the second point is how to make the number of odd days for the months, each of these months simple. What do we do? Instead of taking total number of days, only take the additional number of days. Now let us add all these values. Let us add all these values and find out the total number of odd days. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 3 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 2 is 10, 10 plus 3, 13, plus 2, 15, plus 3, 18, and plus 1 is 19. So we can say total there were 19 odd days. But again, 19 odd days can be taken as 2 complete weeks plus 5 days. So this is equivalent to 5 odd days. Yes or no? 19 weeks is 2 complete, 19 days is 2 complete weeks plus 5 days. So altogether now we have understood that from the first day up to 15th August 1947 we have got 5 odd days. And from our reference chart we know that 5 odd days indicates Friday. 5 indicates Friday. So we can say that 15th August 1947 was a Friday, since 5 odd days represent a Friday. If we get only 4 odd days, we'll say it was a Thursday. If we get, let's say, 6 odd days, a Saturday. If only 1 odd day, we'll say it's a Monday. If we have 0 odd days, that becomes a Sunday. So this is how our knowledge of the number of odd days will help us finding out the day of the week, right? So the simple point here is to find out the day of week for any given day, we need to calculate the number of odd days. In what period? The number of odd days from the 0th day. or we can say the number of odd days from 1st January of the first year up to the given date, and the number of odd days here will give us the day of the week. But then I would say that this calculation is in detail, right? What we have understood is the detailed calculation in finding out the number of odd days, but this can be made much simpler. For example, we have taken 1600 so that we get 0 odd days directly. Then we have taken 300, we have directly taken as 1 odd day. The one thing which eats up a lot of time in this calculation is the number of odd days for all these months, January to July, right? So this part is actually a little time consuming to find out the number of odd days for each of these months and so on. So to get the answer much faster, let us now construct a reference chart. And that reference chart will help us in finding out the total number of odd days for this period directly without having to take it for individual months. And then we'll again calculate the day for 15th August 1947 and see how quickly can we get the answer.